Hey Payton,
Hey, what's up?
what do you think the best decade to grow up as an angsty teenager would be?
Well, I guess let's define my choices first of all. What I can think of is like the whole, the Generation X, 90s grunge, that whole time. Before that, goth.
Yeah, I think like goth rock in like the 80s, like, I don't know, like the whole post-punk movement with like The Cure and Susie and the Banshees.
Right.
I think it would be cool to just be like, have the eyeshadow on and just, be wearing
Right.
black. And then I think the best one, I think for me, I kind of came of age with punk music from the late 70s. I mean, not in the late 70s. Too old, or too young. But,
Old enough, though, ladies. Old enough. Sorry, keep going.
But anyway, I think it would just be a great time to be angry.
Yeah.
Or maybe in the 30s with...
Well, I think like
Glenn Miller.
the music, like, okay, if you're going to be an angry teenager, I think like punk music might be the best for that. Wouldn't you say? Because it's
I think
more
it
about
depends.
rebellion. Like
it's more about rebellion
like
against
literal rebellion.
your parents and your country. And then in the 80s, it was like romantic, like it was all like about romance. And then in the 90s, it was just like complete apathy or like just
disconnect.
like society, like not like politics
Like
or something like in the 70s, but
right.
just like the
just society in general. Like you don't fit in with the kids around you. That type of like punk was more like anti.
It's like get all your buddies together and say like F the government.
Right.
But like, yeah. And then in the 80s, it was just like, I'm lonely, no one loves me. And then in the 90s, it's like, it's all meaningless.
Yeah. I don't know.
Were you ever what kind of kid were you? Or did you go through all those phases? Or
Well, I liked like in middle school. Well, I loved Nirvana from like because I got into Nirvana like probably earlier than I should have because my dad's cousin bought him Nevermind when it came out like in the early 90s as
Really?
a joke. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because like my dad didn't really like Nirvana at the time, and I guess like he was probably 33, 34
Yeah.
when that came out. So it was like kind of like a joke, like, oh, here's the hit music that's been playing all. So it was always sitting on my dad's bookshelf. And like growing up, I'd
little
listen
baby.
to it. Yeah, well, yeah, because there's a little wiener on it, so that's interesting. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
And on the inside cover, Kurt Cobain's giving the finger.
oh, isn't it his ring finger or is that a different?
Oh, it's a blurry picture. But
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm that age, I just see a finger, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's cool. So I started listening to Nirvana like in 6th grade. But I didn't like really. Well, I wasn't like a big fan. I just listened to that one CD. I got really big into them in middle school, but at the same time, I really like punk music. So I'd say punk and everything. But I mean, I was a loser in middle school, like, so it really didn't mean anything. It's not like I was actually like punk or cared about anything that it was referring to. I just like felt a certain way, and it appealed to me.
I'm always really proud. I mean, I got into punk music and I got into Nirvana. I first got into like 70s punk, like the Ramones in 7th grade, and then that got me into Nirvana. And then from there, I had like two separate. I listened to either 70s punk or like 90s alternative grunge, whatever.
Right, very separate.
But I always take a lot of pride in that time. Like I was self-defining, and yeah, I was really whiny, and I was a really lazy kid. And, But I mean, it was cool. Like I felt different, and it was
I felt like for punk for me as like a 7th grader was more of just like when I felt kind of reckless and like energetic at the same time.
Yeah,
and just like didn't want to get pumped up like the Dead Kennedys.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
see, I was kind of a wimpy kid, and so like I didn't do like really cool bad kid stuff.
Yeah.
Except when like we can talk about that later.
Yeah, this might be a different story.
But that was kind of my outlet though. Like I'd come to school and I'd be wearing a Black Flag T-shirt, which I still wear to this day.
You wore it to class like last week.
I wore it the other day.
I commented when I saw you.
It was cool. Like that was my cool thing. So I like people thought I smoked cigarettes, but really I would just go home and watch VH1.
Yeah.
So
I always thought like Kurt Cobain did like so much. I think for both of us in middle school, we didn't really know like what his songs were about because I don't even think like he knew half the time. But it was just something about that music that combined like a lot of like emotions with like sad emotions with like good energy.
Good energy, and also just like kind of that like he had a really cool quote about being a dork and something like how it's so freeing. And then he had another great quote about how like Nirvana, like the concept of Nirvana, like being at inner peace, is kind of a very punk rock notion, just like having complete acceptance within yourself,
right,
and like finding happiness there. I don't know, but it's like it's cool. He certainly got me through a lot, and going through that awkward phase when I have greasy hair and I'm listening to punk rock music. I have nothing to relate to with anyone.
Yeah, definitely. I think like we can talk about Kurt Cobain a lot.
Oh yeah,
and we probably will.
Later. Well, we didn't talk too much about the 80s like goth rock, but this is Atmosphere by Joy Division.